Okay, boys and girls, I am in such a beautiful place. South Jersey in the summertime is so beautiful. And today we have gotten the breakthrough of three things. Three things, the three amusement parks. The three amusement parks. The amusement park of the Holy Spirit, the amusement park of singleness like Jesus, and the amusement park of marriage or the marriage bed. The three amusement parks. Okay. And we also got the inspiration today of the three amusement parks of the Holy Spirit and the pleasure of the man and the pleasure of the woman, which are two different types of pleasure. Talking about these things as a family in youth is awesome. And if you read Leviticus 15 very carefully, you understand that Jesus' mommy and Paul, who was a super Jew, his mommy, they were following the instructions of Leviticus 15 in all kinds of family activity. They were taking care of those special things, and they were unified in the family, checking in on the flow of the man and the flow of the woman. Now, here comes the first installment of all the sex stuff in the Bible. A long time ago, God said to me, if you actually study each one of the presentations about sexual problems and activities in the scriptures, it will actually push dopey, bad lust and craziness spirits off of you and your people and your family, because it's cool stuff. It's really interesting. And the first chapter of all the sex stuff in the Bible is 2 Samuel 13. This is the story of Amnon and Tamar. Okay? Amnon and Tamar. This is a story about a guy who has bad spirits on him. He's got crazy lust and desire for this one woman, and he ends up taking her in a sneaky way. And then soon afterwards, he has the spirit of repulsion and desire goes away, and he has the spirit of lust and desire, shopping spirit. He wants this woman. He wants this woman. After he gets her, the spirit of repulsion and rejection and disgust comes over him, and he doesn't want anything to do with her. This is a warning about watching over your life and being real about the fact that a person, whether it's man or woman, can come after you and then end up not caring about you. This is like a really, really cool story, and it shows you, it follows along with the first point in the Apostles' teaching. The first point in the Apostles' teaching is our battle is not against ourselves and other human beings. Our battle is against spirits that have camped out on the whole human family. Now, absolutely every part of my behavior is not because of quote-unquote demons, but there's a combination of my personal choices and the influences of my friends and family and peer group and the people that are just around me day after day. There's the influence of me, there's the influence of my human environment, and there's the influence of invisible spirits. Three things. Those are our three atmospheres of struggle. Discerning about me and my own convictions and choices, discerning about how dangerous it can be to hang out with people that just don't flippin' care about honor, propriety, serving the poor, like getting spiritual wisdom or guidance from the inside. You have an invisible helper that wants to guide you on the inside. You have an invisible helper that knows you better than you know yourself. So if you're with people who are not working with the beautiful invisible friend on the inside, you can actually because you just love hanging out with people, you can actually be misled and waste your time. So you're battling with yourself and your own convictions. You're battling with the influence of the people around you, and you're also battling with invisible spirits and discerning the types of spirits that we are having problems with. Every one of us has lingering spirit troubles. Go to 2 Corinthians 12 and you discover that Paul, who is a scribe and he's a respected rabbi, and he studied under Gamaliel. Gamaliel's the guy that told the court, the Sanhedrin, do not kill these disciples of Jesus. You might be working against God. Warn them, do something, but do not kill them, because God's wrath might be on you if this is really of God, if these people are operating because of God's love and guidance. So, Amnon and Tamar. Here we go. The guy that's got bad spirits on him. Prince Absalom, David's son, had a beautiful sister named Tamar. And Prince Amnon, her half-brother, fell desperately in love and desire and passionate, hungry wantingness with her. Amnon became so tormented by his desire for this woman that he became sick. He had no way of talking to her because the girls and the young men were kept strictly apart. There's a footnote on that. Bum. Huh. I don't understand. Literally, for she was a virgin, and it seemed impossible to Amnon to do anything with her. Okay. She was a virgin, and it seemed impossible to Amnon to do anything with her. That's the original root Hebrew expression. So she is strictly protected because she is a virgin. But Amnon had a very crafty friend, his cousin Jonadab, the son of David's brother Shemaiah. One day, Jonadab said to Amnon, "What's the trouble? Why should the son of a king look so haggard morning after morning? Why are you so upset?" So Amnon told him, "I am in love with Tamar, my half-sister." "Well, Jonadab, I'll tell you what to do. Go back to bed and pretend you are sick. When your father comes to see you, ask him to let Tamar come and prepare some food for you. Tell him you'll feel better if she feeds you." So Amnon did what this guy suggested. And when the king, King David, came to see him, Amnon asked him for this favor, that his sister Tamar be permitted to come and cook a little something for him to eat. David agreed and sent word to Tamar to go to Amnon's quarters and prepared for some food for him. So she did. And she went into his bedroom so that he could watch her mix some dough. Then she baked some special bread for him. But when she set the serving tray before him, he refused to eat. "Everyone get out of here," he told his servants. So they all left the apartment. This is kind of like top level rich folks people who have servants. This is like high-end, comfy rich people. So he says, "All of my servants, get out of here." So they all left the apartment. Then he said to Tamar, "Now you bring me the food again here in my bedroom and feed it to me." So Tamar took it to him. But as she was standing there before him, he grabbed her and demanded, "Please, come to bed with me, my darling." "Oh, Amnon, don't be foolish. Don't do this to me. You know what a serious crime it is in Israel to defile a virgin and just take a virgin. Where could I go with my shame? And you would be called one of the greatest fools in Israel for doing this. Please, just speak to the king about it, because he will let me have you. You can marry me and just have me." But Amnon would not listen to her. And since he was stronger than she, he forced her. Then suddenly his love turned to hate. And now he hated her more than he had loved her. "Get out of here," he snarled at her. "No, no, no," she cried. "To reject me now is a greater crime than the other one that you just did to me." But he would not listen to her. He shouted for his valet, and he demanded, "Throw this woman out and lock the door behind her." So he put her out. She was wearing a long robe with sleeves, as was the custom in those days for virgin daughters of the king to wear a robe with long sleeves. Now she tore the robe, and she put ashes on her head, and with her head in her hands she went away crying. Her brother Absalom asked her, "Is it true that Amnon raped you?" "Don't be so upset, because it's all in the family anyway. It's not anything to worry about." So Tamar lived as a desolate woman in her brother Absalom's quarters. When King David heard what had happened, he was very angry. But Absalom said nothing one way or the other about this to Amnon. However, he hated him with a deep hatred because of what he had done to his sister. Then 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep were being sheared at Baal Hazor in Ephraim, Absalom invited his father and all his brothers to come to a feast to celebrate the occasion. The king, King David, replied, this is son Absalom inviting King David to a festival of the sheep being sheared. The king replied, "No, my boy, if we all came, we would be too much of a burden on you." Absalom pressed him, but David wouldn't come, although he sent his thanks. David felt like it would be too much of a burden on Absalom to entertain all of these people. "Well then," Absalom said, "if you can't come, how about sending my brother Amnon instead?" "Why Amnon?" the king asked. Absalom kept on urging the matter until finally the king agreed and let all his sons attend, including Amnon. Absalom told his men, "Wait until Amnon gets drunk, and then at my signal, kill him. Don't be afraid. I'm the one who gives the orders around here, and this is a command. Take courage and do this thing." So they murdered Amnon. Then the other sons of the king jumped on their mules and fled away. As they were on the way back to Jerusalem, the report reached David, "Absalom has killed all of your sons, and not one is left alive." The king jumped up, ripped off his robe, and fell prostrate on the ground. His sides also tore their clothes in horror and sorrow. But then Jonadab, the son of David's brother Shemaiah, the guy who actually cooked up the whole idea of Amnon looking sick, Jonadab arrived and said, "No, not all have been killed. It was only Amnon that was killed. Absalom has been plotting this ever since Amnon raped Tamar. No, no, your sons are not all dead. It was only Amnon who was killed." Absalom got away. The killer got away. Now, the watchman on the Jerusalem wall saw a great crowd coming towards the city along the road at the side of the hill. "See," Jonadab told the king, "there they are. Your sons are coming. Just as I said, your sons are alive." They soon arrived, weeping and sobbing, and the king and his officials wept with them. Absalom fled to King Timai of Geshur, the son of Amminahud, and stayed there 3 years. Meanwhile, David, now reconciled to Amnon's death, longed day after day for fellowship with his son Absalom, who had run away after the killing. When General Joab realized how much the king was longing to see his son Absalom, he sent for a woman of Takos who had a reputation for great wisdom, and told her to ask for an appointment with the king. He told her what to say to him. "Pretend you are in mourning," Joab instructed her. "Wear mourning clothes and dishevel your hair as though you have been in deep sorrow for a long time." When the woman approached the king, she fell face downward on the floor in front of him and cried out, "O king, help me." "What's the trouble?" King David asked. "I am a widow, and my 2 sons had a fight out in the field, and since no one was there to part them, one of them was killed. Now the rest of the family is demanding that I surrender my other son to them to be executed for murdering his brother. But if I do that, I will have no one left. Both of my sons will be dead, and my husband's names will be destroyed from the face of the earth. There will be no seed to continue my husband's lineage." "Leave it to me," King David told her. "I'll see to it that no one touches the son who has killed the other son." "Oh, thank you, my lord," she replied, "and I'll take responsibility if you are criticized for helping me in this horrible thing to prevent my other son from being killed by all the people." "Don't worry about that," the king replied. "If anyone objects, bring him to me. I can assure you he will never complain again." Then she said, "Please swear to me by God that you won't let anyone harm my son. I want no more bloodshed." "I vow by God," David replied, "that not a hair of your son who has killed his brother, not a hair of your son's head shall be disturbed." "Please let me ask one more thing of you," she said. "Go ahead," said King David. "Speak." "Why don't you do as much for all the people of God as you have promised to do for me? You have convicted yourself in making this decision because you have refused to bring home your own banished son Absalom. Your son killed another one of your sons, but you have not brought your son Absalom home in forgiveness for killing the one that did evil. All of us must die eventually. Our lives are like water. Our lives are nothing that is just poured out on the ground. Our lives cannot be gathered up again. But God will bless you, King David, and you will live a longer life if you find a way to bring your son Absalom back from his exile because he has killed someone. But as I have come to plead with you for my son, because my life and my son's life have been threatened and the lineage of my husband may be cut off, I said to myself, perhaps the king will listen to me and rescue us from those who would end our existence and cut off the lineage of my husband in Israel. Yes, the king will give us peace again and protection, even over the one who has killed someone. I know that you are like an angel of God, King David, and you can discern good from evil, King David. May God be with you, King David. I want to know one thing, the king replied. Yes, my lord. King David asked the woman, did Joab send you here? Joab is the prophet who stands beside the king, and he's worried about the king and all this mess. And the woman replied, how can I deny it? Yes, Joab sent me and told me precisely what to say. He did it in order to place the matter before you in a different light than just anger, but a greater picture for all of us. But you are as wise as an angel of God, King David, and you know everything that happens, and you can see the inner truth from the inside. So the king sent for Joab and told him, all right, go and bring back my son Absalom. Joab fell to the ground before the king and blessed him and said, at last I know that you are like me, for you have granted me this request, and this is from the peace of God. Then Joab went to Jeshurun and brought Absalom, who had killed Amnon, who raped his sister. He brought Absalom back from Jerusalem. He may go to his quarters, the king ordered, but he must never come here. I refuse to see him. Now, no one in Israel was such a handsome specimen of manhood as Absalom. And no one else received such praise. He was so handsome, and he cut his hair only once a year. And then only because it weighed 3 pounds and was too much of a load to carry around. Absalom was handsome, and he had 3 sons and 1 daughter, Tamar, who was a very beautiful girl. After Absalom had been in Jerusalem for 2 years and had not yet seen the king, he sent for Joab to ask him to intercede for him, but Joab wouldn't come. Absalom sent for him again, but again Joab, the prophet, refused to come. So Absalom said to his servants, go and set fire to that barley field of Joab's next to mine. And they did. Then Joab came to Absalom and demanded, why did your servants set my field on fire? And Absalom replied, because I wanted you to ask the king why he brought me back from Geshur if he didn't intend to see me. I might as well have stayed there in Geshur. I don't get to see my father. Let me have an interview with the king. Then if he finds that I am guilty of murder, let him execute me. So Joab told the king what Absalom had said. Then at last David summoned Absalom, and he came and bowed low before the king, and David kissed him. Now, this is all a story about a man who had been so filled with the spirit of lust that he took his own sister when he could have just asked to have her in marriage. And it is a marvelous warning to see what the trickle-downs of hatred and retaliation and junk happens when you fool around with a person who is not yours, and how much trouble it causes in the hearts of everybody. And even in my own life, I lived with decades of guilt and sadness and shame because of impropriety in sexual interaction. So that's number one. That's number one story of all the sex stuff in the Bible. coming to you from Grandpa Honesty Guy and Christian Sex Daddy, because no one took the time to chat with me about all the craziness that happens because of an ignorance about the pleasure of the Holy Spirit, an ignorance about the pleasure of the man, and an ignorance about the pleasure of the woman, an ignorance about the pleasure of living single like Jesus for a whole lifestyle, and ignorance about the pleasure of having the marriage bond of two people together as one flesh. Singleness like Jesus, or two people together as one flesh. Both of them have awesome things that happen. If you're single like Jesus, you get more travel, more miracles, more time to just read and study and greet new people, more friends, more travel, more miracles, more quiet time alone to ponder things, and more time to help people with their relationships, to encourage people, and even to team up and create a nice big house full of kids that are abandoned and people that are having problems. You can have a big happy house and a good family business operating together. If you're operating single, you can be the favorite aunties and uncles. And it does, you can survive without a marriage bed. Or you can have a marriage bed and you can be the communion group house. And you can be the mommy and daddy that shelter other children and that shelter women that don't have a good family sheltering atmosphere with a purpose, with good family businesses running and stuff like that. So, thanks for tuning in. All the Sex Stuff in the Bible, Chapter 1.